Hello there, lovely people. This is me, Ashley, here, sending my love to you from whatever reality I'm in today to whatever reality you find yourself in. Please excuse me, I'm really not very well. So please bear with me while I talk about what I want to talk about today, which is the Mandela effect and Henry VIII. Now, from being a very small child, I've always been fascinated with Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. It's been a passion of mine. I've been lucky enough to go to Hampton Court Palace and actually be in the Great Hall where Henry VIII once walked, as not very much of Hampton Court Palace is Tudor anymore, and the places where Henry walked are now few. It was a really exciting thing for me. I also managed to do the naughty thing of touching his knee on a painting of him and his family with Jane Seymour, and it's a very famous painting. So I am very well aware of the history of the Tudors, Henry VIII, and in fact further on in the Tudors, Queen Elizabeth herself. So this is really it's not really a Mandela effect about Henry VIII, it's a Tudor Mandela effect. Now I'm going to start with Henry VIII because I noticed that people were going mad because Henry was no longer walking about with a turkey leg in his hand. Now, for you, that's your reality. For me, that was never my reality. Henry was never ever pictured with a turkey leg in his hand, mainly because turkeys they weren't introduced here until centuries after. There were no turkeys here in Britain, and I think we got them from the Americas, so he could never ever have been holding a turkey leg in his hand. And in my reality, that's the way it was. However, shortly afterwards, my reality changed, and in town there was a billboard sign showing Henry VIII with a bloody turkey leg in his hand. To me, that was a massive Mandela effect. I was already Mandela affected at the time, but there are lots of things that I haven't actually told you about because I'd literally be on here all the time if I told you about every single Mandela effect. But the reason why I'm doing this one is because it goes quite deep, the Tudor Mandela effect situation. You see, anybody that's been following my Mandela journey will know that I'm a bit of a geek and I watch history programs as well as like all kinds of other stuff, but history programs. And I've been noticing that there's an awful lot of residences in Britain that never used to be. Not in my reality anyway. And this is again why I'm not just talking about Henry VIII. I'm going to go on and talk about the Tudors in general, like Queen Elizabeth I, because there have been residences that were in my reality had disappeared, but are now here. Lots of them. One example, I can't for now because I'm not too good. I can't quite remember the name of the place, but Queen Elizabeth I was linked to a man called Dudley, who she actually had his photo with her until her dying day. It was on a bedside table until her dying day, and we're pretty sure that she was in love with Dudley. But Dudley's wife, because Dudley was married, and Dudley's wife came to a nasty end. She was found at the bottom of some stairs with big dents in her head. And although he was cleared of any misdoing, any murder or any misdoing, obviously there was a lot of talk about it and round the court, and Elizabeth had to send him away. But when I've watched other history programmes before, they could never ever show you the place where Dudley's wife, Amy I think her name was found at the bottom of the stairs, because it didn't exist anymore. Now it does. Now it does exist. And I was watching a programme the other day online, and there it was showing you the house that she was found in. Also, she seems to have moved. She was no longer found in her own home, but in the home of somebody else. So that's confusing. Also, there was something else I just thought I should have mentioned about Henry VIII, but My mind isn't very good at the minute. Oh, it'll come back to me. So you see, there are. Oh, that was it. Anne Boleyn. We were never. In my reality, I was never able to see the house that Anne Boleyn was brought up in. Her family home. It didn't exist anymore. But in this reality, it does. Which I find very intriguing. Very intriguing indeed. Especially, you see, to me, what is not concerning, but a bit intriguing about the whole scenario is that if it wasn't for Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn's relationship, Britain would still be a Catholic country. And with all the changes that are happening right now, and the changes in the Bible, because, it's all, it makes me wonder, is anything going to change along those lines to fit with a different agenda, the Luciferian agenda that's going on at the minute? But the fact that I've just watched a programme now where it's shown you a residence that Henry took off somebody else, which he was quite often, he was good at that. He did that with Hampton Court Palace. And he was supposed to have wooed Anne Boleyn from this house, this Tudor house that I've never heard of. And yet I know the history of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn because it was a passion of mine. So it's massively changed. A lot of British history has changed. But the Tudor history is quite bizarre. The amount of Tudor houses, Tudor mansions that are still standing, that never used to be. Don't get me wrong, they're absolutely beautiful, but they're not from my reality. They were destroyed in my reality. So I just wondered what you thought of all that. You know, do you know about what do you know about the story of Henry VIII? I know most of you come from the reality where he had the turkey leg, but in Britain, the turkey wasn't introduced till much, much later. I think it was actually Victorian times when the turkey was introduced, many centuries after. So it couldn't possibly have been in my reality. But I know it was in yours. So that's the Mandela effect for you. But it's changing history a lot here in Britain, and the Tudor history, in as much as buildings that weren't there are now there. You know, all kinds of stuff's going on. So I just wondered what you thought of that. And are there any bits of history that you've noticed that have changed? Let me know in the comments down below, please. Thank you for listening as always, for your love, support, your prayers, and for keeping my sanity hanging by a thread. My love to you all till next time.